Thank you everyone for joining us. I just popped a message in the chat, but we'll be starting at past/ when Nana resolves his technical issues, and the Q&A box is open if you have any questions that you would like to ask me to ask him in a little while.
No worries. You can hear
How
me
are
okay?
you? Yes.
No, I'm doing great. No worries at all.
Good. Well, thank you so much for coming. So you heard me filling time, I think we'll call it before. Some might call it.
I was in and out trying to figure out how to get access, but I heard only a little bit of it. So
okay. Well, some might call it filling time, so you didn't miss anything. But my name's Fran. I'm a Chapter 25 host for everybody else, because I don't recognise any names in the chat, so I don't think there's any of my club here. But my name's Fran. I am a Chapter 25 host. I've been a host for about a year. I host Letchworth Volume 1. Nana, you won't know where that is because it's a tiny place in England and it's not very exciting. Although it is the world's first garden city. We all have gardens. We all have gardens, so it's green.
What is it called? You said, what was the name of it?
Letchworth Garden City.
Yeah.
Have you been?
No, but I've heard.
Okay, cool. But I've been involved with Chapter 25 pretty much since the beginning. So 2023 was the beginning, when there was just one little club, and now we're over 100. So this is my first author Q&A, and I was basically asked to do it because Sean, the founder, was like, Fran, you love Chain Gang All Stars, and I was like, oh, but I'm so nervous to speak to him.
Oh, I'm honored to be here.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming. So I will introduce you, Nana, but if I get it wrong, you don't think I've done you justice.
No worries. No worries.
Intro yourself. So Nana, for everybody else, is the author of, in fact, 2 books. So the first one, Friday Black, is a collection of short stories, and it was published in 2018. And then Chain Gang All Stars, which was your first novel, was published in 2023. So I tried to list the awards you've been longlisted, shortlisted, or won, and I was like, this list is getting a bit ridiculous. So I'm going to say that you've been longlisted, shortlisted, or won lots for both books. But the one I will mention, because it's how I found you, is the Waterstones debut novel shortlist, because that's how I saw you. So yeah, you were shortlisted for that. So is there anything you want to add to your intro that you think?
No, I think you did a great job. That sounds amazing.
Okay. So there'll be members here who have read Chain Gang All Stars, possibly Friday Black, but probably Chain Gang All Stars. There'll be members who are about to read it, and members who haven't even heard of it before. So could you tell us about the book in your own words? What's it about?
First of all, I appreciate anyone who's taking the time today or tonight. I'm grateful. Chain Gang All Stars is my second book. My first novel, my first book was a short story collection. But Chain Gang All Stars is about an imagined future in which convicted wards of state, people who have been convicted of serious crimes and sentenced to at least 25 years, can opt out of the traditional quote unquote prison, and then instead participate in sort of gladiatorial death matches. It's sort of a return to sort of gladiatorial blood sport. And the sort of motivation for doing this is that if you survive 3 years on what they call the circuit, 3 years as a gladiator, so to speak, you are given clemency, or you're freed. And so the book is about a world where this has become one of the biggest sports, biggest consumer sort of entertainment. And in particular, we're following a woman, really 2 women, Loretta Thurwar and Hamara Stacker, or also known as Hurricane Stacks, who are some of the most prominent and popular stars in this brutal game.
Thank you. And so I don't read, I'm going to be honest, I don't read a lot of books written by men. I'm kind of over it. Sorry, not you, not you. I will read everything you write. But when I realised they were, I mean, there are lots of characters in the book, but when I realised that Thurwar and Stacks were women, I was like, oh no, it's like a man writing women, is it going to be? But it wasn't at all. It didn't, you know, often it takes me out of the story, but it didn't at all. I was there, like I heard their voices. What made you choose these two strong Black women as your protagonists?
Yeah, you know, it's a, I mean, it's a good question. When you're writing fiction, I think inherently you're stepping outside of yourself. That's like inherent to the project of writing kind of anything, but especially fiction. And it's funny, I didn't necessarily like think like, oh, I'm going to try to write woman, because I've done it before, but also the story sort of just asks for it. So the honest answer is, when I first started, I just had this image of a woman in sort of the eye of like this sort of arena, being treated really badly, but also almost having like not an indifference, but like this kind of defiance against this crowd that hated her, or was being really openly, publicly like against her. And after I had this image without any real context, and after a while I started to think, well, okay, what could be the context for something like this? And eventually became, well, she would have to be like a criminal, because that criminals are like the people that so-called good people, or so-called reasonable people could feel comfortable delighting in her suffering publicly. And so that felt part of it. Why it mattered that she was a woman initially was kind of just like how it felt. But then as I continued, I understood her to be someone who was in a position of relative power within the context of sort of an overly oppressive system. And I needed her to maybe risk some of that privilege for like the good of the group, or for the good of others. And I've just found that in my experience, women are much more likely to do something like that. And then her partner, in terms of her partner, I didn't always know like who she'd be attracted to. And there's even a part early on, I thought she'd be attracted to a man, but I needed whoever she was with to really understand her situation, this particular situation of being both adored, but kind of like condescended to be hated and like hypersexualized, to be dominant, but also like looked down upon. And it just made sense for their partner to also be a woman, because it's just a particular experience to women. And the example I often give is, LeBron James has a particular experience of life, or let's say Cristiano Ronaldo or whoever. But if there's a woman dominant in the sport, like a Serena Williams over here, for example, her experience is always different. There's always this other edge of disrespect. There's always edge of hypersexualization, this other edge. And it felt important to navigate that. And then, so outside of that, so that's like the reason. But outside of that, you know, for me, like when I write fiction, the whole game is writing outside yourself. So even if I'm writing a Black male, you know, I don't have like the universal Black male, like, you know, Wikipedia. I'm just
not a homogeneous group, right? Like Black men are all different people.
And so that said, there are blind spots that I have as a man. And in this case, particularly as a straight male, like there's a lot of blind spots that could exist. And so you always have to like sort of balance that reality with the willingness to explore and be creative and try to express, to honor the particular voice, as opposed to like sort of mime your idea of homogeneity as it might exist across any identity marker, whether that be gender, sexuality, race, religion, whatever.
Now you said that, I can really see that, like they're all of the characters, not just their world stacks, but they're people, they're not stereotypes. And I guess that's why, because you're writing people, you're not writing a stereotype.
Exactly. I always think about, like, even though obviously I know I was writing a Black woman, I felt like I was writing Loretta Thurwar. You know what I mean? And same thing with Stax, and same thing with Hendrix, Scorpion Singer, and same thing even with Simon Kraft. Like all of them who have very, very vastly different experiences than I do. And they all felt like I was writing a specific individual who is informed by all these groups as well. So it's like a balancing act. You have to be aware of it, but it's not the defining principle by any means.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I thought I read, but when I went back to find it, I couldn't find it. But that the original idea was just a short, not just a short story, sorry, I'm not doing down short stories, but I mean the original idea was a short story about third war almost by herself. Is that right? What made,
no,
sorry,
go ahead. No, you can finish.
I was gonna say, what made you choose to make it bigger? Because you're great at writing short stories, so why change that one in particular?
Yeah, I think if I can write a story and feel satisfied with it as a short story, I always will, 100%. That's like a principle I have for the rest of my life. I love short stories and I really value economy and being concise. But I think what changed is I started to think more closely about, like, once I understood that I was thinking about the carceral system and prisons and the prison industrial complex, I started to do research and I realized the story wouldn't even be the tip of the iceberg. I think like it's okay for us to have like a sort of tip of the iceberg feeling in a short story, but for what I started to get interested in, it wasn't even going to be the tip of the iceberg, because even just Chain Gang is still just the tip of the iceberg of like the way the prison industrial complex exists, even though I tried my best to be as thorough or try to be really like intentional about creating this whole world. But yeah, basically I would have felt dissatisfied personally because the context that informed Third War I learned more and it felt really big. And I also started to see a lot of characters that were like in this concert with her, whether they met her or not. And that started to feel novelish. And so almost it just kind of took on its own life pretty quickly, or a little bit after I started it. And eventually, you know, you get to 60 pages and you're like, well, okay, this feels like something else.
Carry on.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't. You're a supremely talented short story writer, but I don't think you could have like covered all of them. We'll come to the issues shortly, but I don't think you could have covered all of the issues in a short story. It's just not possible.
No, it's really hard. And some of the chapters, you know, have a short story kind of energy to them, you know.
When I found out you wrote short stories, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense, because I could feel, on reflection, I could feel that in Chain Gang, because each chapter could almost be by itself, because it's often when you're reading a novel, it's about the whole arc, but you have like these almost like mini arcs in the arc.
I'm glad you say that, because that's the word I was going to use. I could tell you, like a close, astute reader, like those arcs are, to me, sometimes when I read certain books, I have trouble understanding like what makes them choose this chapter from that chapter, you know. And for me, it is the sense of a little bit of an arc, like a little bit of an episode, a little bit of even a very minor change or conditional difference or something has happened. And that's how I even know when a chapter is done, you know. Without that, without that sense of a little bit of a rising and falling, or maybe even a rising that it gets cut off for some reason, whatever, that doesn't necessarily have to fall, because it doesn't necessarily have to have that sort of familiar hill structure, but a sense of an arc or a movement that feels like has some type of even minor resolution. The resolution is anti-resolution, I guess. That's how I decide if I should end a chapter or not.
I am just, while I was waiting, because I was a bit nervous, I was like, well, I can't really do anything. Why don't I just read like a chapter of Chain Gang to like get in the zone? And I read so we try to be spoiler free, so I'm not gonna spoiler it. I'm gonna try really hard. But the Sunset's last chapter is what I read, and that could easily be just something by itself.
There's exactly, I try my best to, because you never know. Like, the thing I love about short story is it assumes like, which I always try to assume in general, but it's explicit with a short story. Like, you can't waste like a page, you know. It can't be like a bad page or a bad section. Like, some novels maybe take like several chapters like off, you know, before it gets really,
like to warm up.
And I don't like that.
I could tell the start of yours is like you're straight in, you're in the arena, you're there, bam, you're in.
You can't assume, and I think about this a lot too, because maybe things change as you get further or less far in your career or further, but I don't think I can assume anyone's gonna like give me 3 pages for any reason, especially when I started writing this book, because I started writing this book before I had my first book out.
Mhm.
So in my heart, you can't just like assume the reader's gonna just like let you rock. So you kind of owe it to them to make everything count, make everything matter, make it feel important from the go and all the way through to the end.
Yeah, I can see that in both, but we'll come to Friday Black later. But yeah, I can see that in both. You said when you started answering my question about when you realized you were writing a book about the prison system, then that's when you realized it could no longer really be a short story because there was too much to say.
Mm-hmm.
Like what was that tipping point? What made you think, actually, I do have a lot to say about this? Was there like a moment?
That's a good question. I think there was a couple of different moments. So I had been separately where I'm from, a place called Spring Valley, Rockland County. We had done a lot of work with my school district. My school district is like always like in, financial trouble and blah, blah, blah. A whole bunch of, that's a long story, but so one of the groups I organized that was very involved is called the Rockland Coalition to End the New Jim Crow.
Mm-hmm.
They do a lot of community work, but obviously with their name, you can see that they're interested in sort of like advocacy for those who are incarcerated and people in prisons. That's sort of integral to their purpose, even though they also happen to care a lot about schools. And there's a reason why, because those issues are connected, as are many of the issues. So that's one thing. I also think that through my first book, I sort of realized like my thing, or the thing I care about, is like implicating systems. Like I realized that there's a lot of like violent and harsh systems that shape the way we look at the world, the way we consider each other. And so by working with the Rockland Coalition and getting some more, like, I guess if you want it, you could say hands-on experience, like doing advocacy and even just learning from people who are formerly incarcerated or people who work in advocacy work directly with prisons, I grew a natural, like actual interest outside of any creative project. And I think so that was like kind of like almost like this thing that's in me bubbling. Also, I already had a predisposition potentially because I've said it a bunch of times before. My father, while he was alive, was a criminal defense attorney. So that's kind of like just, I guess, in my consciousness somewhere in my blood already too. So it's almost like a perfect storm where this thing that I'm interested in, my lived life, and also it's sort of my almost like history, start like the thing that I've become obsessed with as I grow into an adult, that is to say being a writer, they kind of converge together. And so I don't know if there's any particular moment. I do think once I had a story that seemed interested in prison, it was like, it made me take the step to start reading about like the philosophical backdrop that allows prisons to even exist. And then I was like, wow, that's interesting. And I already knew, at least in America, like the direct line between chattel slavery and slave catching and like and policing and prisons, but like seeing that really explicitly started to get, it was strange. And then I had a sense that felt similar to what I felt in my first book. And I don't know how to name the feeling, but my first book, there's a story called The Finkelstein Five, and it's the first story in that book. And I remember feeling like when I wrote that story, when I was sequencing it, I was like, if someone reads this story and afterwards they decide, you know what, Nana, he sucks, he's trash, they throw the book in the garbage, I would feel okay, because at least I got them that one time. And I felt a sort of echo of that same feeling where I was like, you know what, this is my first novel. And in the literary world, for whatever reason, novels are very highly privileged. And I thought, if someone reads just this novel and nothing else, or just my first novel and nothing else, what do I care for it to be about? And this system that to me is deeply, personally, I believe it deeply informs so many other violences that we accept. I felt like if I could write something that really, I don't know, hit a nerve or hit people, what would I care for it to be about? And so I think that it was all these things coming together. And I don't know if I could pinpoint a moment, but it was somewhere where I was in the MFA where I started to think like, this feels like it. I think I wasn't good enough at the time when I first started. But the cool thing about a novel is it kind of acts, and every story does, it asks you, if you choose the right projects, to sort of meet it at the summit that you are not yet strong enough to like climb to, but in the process of trying, you'll kind of gain the muscles, is the metaphor I use sometimes. Sorry, that was a long answer. I apologize.
No, it was great because I loved it, because I think most books, when you talk about the themes, you talk about like an exploration of the themes, or, you know, but and I don't, or you have that kind of, sorry, I used to be a teacher, I use my hands a lot, but you have that at like one end of the spectrum, and then at the other end of the spectrum you have like hit you over the head with the message.
Yeah.
And that's not fun. But with you, I felt like you were exploring it, but also to me at least, it was very clear what you thought. Like, you think that prison is violence. I mean, I also agree, but like, I could tell before I'd even spoke to you or heard you speak or read like anything, you know, interviews, that that's what you were going to think. Yeah. And I could tell that you thought that all of those things were connected, because I mean, I guess we're starting from the same place. So you've already kind of got me, and I'm not like somebody who's not in that place, but I don't really see how you could read it and think anything else. If you still think differently by the end, then I don't think it's going to save you.
Yeah, it's really tricky. You're talking about something difficult, because, and I teach as well. So I
stalked your LinkedIn. I'm going to say it now. So I saw that.
You don't want to, like, in fiction in particular, like you said, you don't want to just like beat people over the head. You don't want to make a pamphlet or whatever.
No.
And I talk about this too, because there was times where I felt like, you know, I'm a radical and I want to make a pamphlet, and I still am a radical, but like radical in the sense that I think everyone deserves food and housing. But in this world, you know,
apparently that is radical, but it's not really, not when you put it like that.
You know, I think that policing and prisons is a form of organized abandonment. But it was really important for me to like, oh no, I forgot what was I about to say. It was really important for me. I got sidetracked. It was about prisons and
not beating people over the head, but
oh yeah. Okay, so like not being too didactic. I didn't want to be like overly didactic and feel like you were like I'm shouting down from like some hill, because what's really important to me, as opposed to like being right, is like being effective. And for me, the case has always been to self-implicate, because abolition, even though we can say we all believe in it, it's not that easy. We all live in the water. We're all been taught to be really afraid. We're all drinking the same like sort of water, which says the person over there is meant to hurt you, meant to harm you, meant to kill you if we don't have this thing. And of course, like society as it is built on certain structures. But what I'm sort of like have come to realize and understand is the system we have now doesn't adequately do the thing it's saying it's supposed to do, number one. And it's also cutting off our willingness and ability to imagine even better. And we can and should and must do that. So that was huge. So when I'm being overly like, to be honest, and I think you're very kind, I do think sometimes I do go to like pamphlet mode where I'm saying like these statistics or whatever.
I'm scared to mention the footnotes, but do you think it's the footnotes?
No, 100% it's the footnotes. But my thing is like, when even like, when I mean, you could always make statistics say something, right? But if I give you the numbers about the over criminalization of queer people, either you make a decision, either queer people are inherently dispositioned to criminality or the system is homophobic. And it's like, I don't like, choose one. Like, what do you think it is? Same thing with racism. So it's like, sometimes, I mean, in America, we're obviously struggling with this right now. Like sometimes like we're afraid to say like, this is a fact. Like we have statistical evidence, we have research. I can tell you with certainty that the system is violent. It is over-selecting for certain people. It is homophobic. It is transphobic. And unless someone wants to argue with me and say like, oh no, like they believe that trans people are more inherently violent or something. you know, a little. Not, I'm trying to decide if I want to make some kind of J.K. Rowling joke or not. I'll leave it alone. But
You might
like,
set me off, so maybe don't, but only for that reason.
but like, yeah, it's wild with her. It's like there's so many issues in the world. How is that what she picked? It's so scary. Anyways,
I mean, how can you have so much power and choose it to like marginalize a marginalized group? That's insane.
yeah, it's like even if that's what you believe, which is a horrible, sucky belief, of course, evil, whatever, great. Surely just at end world hunger instead, right? Like,
yeah, there are much more, even if you do believe that, there are much more pressing issues.
You know, but anyways,
yeah.
sorry,
sidetracked.
Sorry. To me, it's like and the other thing with the didacticness of the footnotes is I'm so afraid of like the future where people try to act like this book is about something else, and it happens many times. Star Wars is like maybe to me the most important example or obvious example. Say Fight Club, where it becomes almost the exact opposite of what it's trying to satirize, becomes the thing itself. And so to me, it's like I wanted like an embedded way. So there's just, you have to be so willfully, I don't think you can even be willfully ignorant. You have to be like, you would just have to change the book for you to not understand what it's about.
Yeah, I mean, I think even if you skip the footnotes, you would still have to be choosing to not understand what it was about.
You never know. I met someone who watched Squid Game and they had no idea it was talking about capitalism or consumerism in any way, shape, or form. I'm telling you, it's pretty scary.
That is scary.
Yeah.
And I also think it's important, like, so I think in the UK, it's easy to say like, oh, well, you know, it's America that has these problems. Okay, so we don't have
private prison.
I mean, prisons do work in the prisons, so we do have some kind of prison slavery going on, and prison is still violence, whatever you choose, and the system is still broken here too. We also have like Black people are overrepresented in the prison population, trans people are overrepresented in the prison population. So I think, yeah, it's especially when you're more distant from it, as we are physically distant, it's easy to say, oh, it's like an American thing. And maybe he's exaggerating. But once you knows, you're not exaggerating, and it's here too. It's not.
And part of why I chose to write about like this kind of imagined space as opposed to like a particular specific prison is it's also about the implications, the philosophical implications of the investment in these kind of institutions. The idea that, oh, you stole this piece of bread or something, we get to take away your freedom. The very idea of humans in cages shouldn't be taken for granted. The very idea of the state shooting someone in the head, or if we want to feel more comfortable, injecting them with a very violent and painful serum, which is not painless. It is the only reason why it appears painless is the first chemicals in that set of chemicals that they use for lethal injection locks you into like a paralysis.
Yeah.
So these people are being burned alive from the inside out, while we get to feel like a sense of serenity about it, and a sense of
justice.
And but so it's like a prettiness to it. I think we simultaneously, meaning I mean both of us are in it. If we think about who's been bombing Palestine the most, like the countries in the quote unquote West are very good at, you know, exporting death, but like smiling and we're the good guys, you know, that whole thing. World War II, you know, just in case you forgot, World War II, we're not Hitler type of thing. And it's like, you know, America's riding World War II like it was like yesterday. And how many wars have happened in the interim?
Yeah.
You know how many World War II movies we have? And how many Vietnam movies are there relative? So much to do like that math. Anyways, it's a really big problem, and that philosophical like implication of allowing humans to be caged shouldn't be taken lightly. And then we have to think and remember, like, once that exists, you've created a system that the wrong person gets in power, and now all of a sudden you have the ability and the sort of runway for these internment camps. So you have the ability and these runways for these concentration camps. So it's all it's really worth interrogating, and to me, it's all takes us away from being more compassionate than we might have been.
Yeah. I think we should come back to the person who's in charge later, because I do have a question about the person who's in charge, but later. I'll just bring you back to Chain Gang All Stars, like the plot and the story for a second. But at some points, the beginning wasn't so bad, but at some points in the book, I was like, this is so violent and so unexpectedly violent, because the kind of blurby stuff I'd read was like, oh, it's like American Chain Gang, American Hunger Games, and I was like, oh, that's a young adult novel. So I didn't like prepare myself for how violent it was going to be.
Yeah.
So at some points I was like, I think I'm gonna have to put this down, because it's a lot, and I don't normally read things that are that violent.
Yeah.
But there was so much love also in the book, like, and I mean like romance, but also like the Thurwar's sorry, I've lost my words. Their gang like almost becomes a family, right? There's like familial love there, like respect, like the protesters love them in like a very like human way. Just so much love. Did you expect when you started writing to write a story with like that much love in it?
That's a good question. I don't know if I expected, but it's almost like spoiler alert for me. Like everything I write, love and compassion is kind of like, not to be cheesy, but that's kind of where I'm going to end up getting to. I just think it's the answer, and I don't know.
Being human, right?
And it can look a lot of ways too. Like I think sometimes people think love means like, kumbaya and like, wearing like a nice sweater and like rubbing your shoulders or something and drinking hot cocoa. Sometimes love requires you to like turn up and flip over a table, even if you want to use it in a Catholic, like a Judeo or like a Christian sense. I was raised super Christian, and people have been thinking about it a little bit more, I hope now. Like when he got to the money lenders, Jesus wasn't like, hey, I think you guys should leave. He was like trying to aggressively flip the tables open. Sometimes you have to do that, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, love is the thing for me. Like I think compassion, I think that my project as like a person and as a writer is to like help grow our capacity and understanding of compassion, both in myself and in my work, and then also hopefully in the world. And so it often ends up being like where I'm gonna like land at. It just seems to be the case.
That makes sense. I am going to move us on to Friday Black in a second, but I do have to ask you about the footnotes, because I saw you wrote on Substack that it's your most asked question, but I feel like, how can't you ask about the footnotes? And I also saw that you hate footnotes. So, and as a fellow I hate footnotes person, because it gives me some kind of university related trauma. Can you tell us why you chose, I mean, you've touched on it already, but tell us a bit more about the footnote.
So I think that a lot of us hate footnotes because of universally influenced trauma, academia at large, and that's because it can feel academic and sort of predictable and boring. I think I like to just challenge myself. I think I get a little bored if it feels a little too standard, so I got to do something weird. But also I think I was, for some reason, I was like struggling with the linearity of like traditional prose, which again, I don't want to sound academic even saying that, but like the fact that it's just like a line after a line after a line, poets, for example, are very happy to mess around and change this. But in fiction, you have less opportunity to do so. And I feel like the footnotes ended up feeling like a chance for me to mess around and do something different. And it also became a space where I could create some of those like moments where I could like give you real facts that I was interested in. And so, yeah, I decided to do the footnotes because I wanted to find a way to almost like introduce play where I had been, with using a construct that I had thought of as like anti-play and boring. And it ended up becoming like a nice sort of one of the signatures of the book, pretty much, I would say. Very
much a choice. And I've got one more like kind of stylistic, maybe nerdy question, but anyway, I'm asking it. Here I am. You switch between third person for like third one stacks, and then go to first person for some of the other characters. And I kind of didn't realize that it was like, I mean, obviously I did realize thinking about it, but I hadn't like consciously acknowledged that it was in third person until you switched. And then I was like, oh, it wasn't in first person. So it's close. I'm not an English academic, but is close the right word? Like a close third person. Why did you make those choices to switch, and why for those characters?
That, I mean, if I don't know if it's nerdy or not, but these are the kind of questions I like. It's like, you know, I think about these things a lot. I like when people even notice it. So just for anyone who doesn't know, a third person, he, she, they.
Yes.
First person, I. And traditionally, the idea might be that the I voice, you can be very, very, very close to the person. You get their internal monologue. You get everything from their point of view. You're locked into them, and you don't really leave it. The third person can be interesting because it's like a person, like you're saying he did this, she did that. But when you say close third, it's almost like you get to split the difference between the two, where it's still in third person, but we're mostly operating from within their perspective and point of view. So with the two main characters being in this close third, that was important to me. First off, it was a challenge for me, because if you actually go back to like a Friday Black with maintaining voices, I started to see I was kind of like over first person. I feel like I was very first person based. Excuse me. So that was a surprise to me. Like, I didn't realize that about myself. I think, and you'll see this with Chain Gang as well, it's a little bit easier to be deeply inflected in terms of like the voice sounding very, very, very particular in a first person. For me anyways.
Yeah.
You could be a hyper super close third, like George Saunders, who's my mentor and professor. And a lot of his stuff is in like a third person, but it's so third person that the language feels like a first person. I could talk a lot about that. But for me, with the two main characters who have the most stage time, I needed a close third, because I think if I rarely write in like a true omniscient. I don't think I ever have, really. Or maybe if I do, it's for like a second or something. I do it for like a small chapter. I can't sustain that. Because I'm very much locked in with the character as I'm writing. But the close third was necessary because I needed to feel like we knew who they were and get some of their impulses and their styles, but also I couldn't give all the information that they knew right at once. So with the first person, it's a little bit, to me, you can't withhold information the same with I. Once it's I, whatever matters most, they kind of would be thinking about it. The third person, I could kind of titrate the information release a little bit more precisely. And that was a huge decision that totally is one of the most integral and important aspects of this book, whether people realize it or not, that them being in the third versus these two guys who are in the first. Also, on the other side, those two being in first, they have less stage time, but their presence can be big because their voice is so particular and distinct. Hendrik Scorpion Singer, he has like this like bluesy Southern church kind of energy going on, literally singing sometimes. Simon Kraft, we get to see the degradation of his mind from his own point of view, and his voice can be deeply like affected. And so that means like I can have sentences that don't complete right. I can be just repetitions. I can do all these things that represent the nature of his mind, and it's easier and more believable for me to do that when I'm in the first person. So they each have their own strengths.
It was a shock to be in Simon J. Kraft's mind. I was like, oh, we're in your brain and it's not okay, and we know, you're not okay as a consequence of what's been done to the violence that's been done to you in prison. And wow. Whereas I think when you see, because initially you meet him from the outside, because you must be Hendrix, right? I can't remember exactly. But he comes into the camp and kills everybody. But, I did a spoiler, but it's not a real spoiler. It's just, but he comes into the camp and kills everybody except Hendrix. And another moment of a lot of violence. And I think it's, if you were on the outside, even maybe a close third, you could say, oh, like, he's insane. But it's being inside you, it's kind of like, oh, that you can really see what's happened to him is what's caused him to be like that.
Yeah. And it's also, for me, the I can be useful, like a radical empathy, even in a
Mm.
way for a person who, even for me, is a challenge to like extend that to, which is why I did it. And I think for seeing him be more salient and then lose that through what's happening to him felt very important as well.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking. Yeah. I could talk about Chain Gang All Stars all night, but I'm not going to. I'm going to move us on to Friday Black. I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions because I'm conscious that most people probably won't have read it. But if you had to describe Friday Black, sorry, I'm really conscious of not saying Black Friday. That's why I keep hesitating. I do know what it's called.
No worries.
Which is
No worries
obviously
whatsoever.
purposeful. But if you had to describe it as a collection to somebody who hadn't read it, what would you say about it?
Have you seen that funny little couch thing I used to say about this?
No.
It used to be really hard to talk about this because it's a story collection and it's a many different things. So the way I would describe it usually is, if you imagine 3 guys sitting on a couch, and the first guy's like, wow, this couch feels really comfortable. It's like kind of sleek. It's pretty cool. And the second person's like, yeah, it really has really good like butt feel. I feel like just super comfortable here. And the third person's like, I also feel like it's comfortable, but I think we're overlooking the fact that it's made out of human corpses. That's how I would describe Friday Black.
Yeah, I can see that. I wish we could see the faces of everybody else, but yes, I can see that. It was although I do like to read authors in like a chronological order for how they've written, I did really enjoy going backwards because I could see like the differences, and I mean they were both incredible, but like how you'd developed and how you were like exploring a different style and doing a different thing. But also when I read your short stories, I was like, oh yeah, I can see so much of this in Chain Gang, like this as I said before, like how you write and the mini arcs and that kind of thing. But I mean the range is quite vast in Friday Black, but do you have a favorite story?
It changes, and this is to your point earlier too. Like, funny enough, if you can believe it, I'm also a little bit squeamish. Like, I actually don't.
No, you're not.
I am, yeah. But I think it's why, it's so hard, and not for me. I'm squeamish, right? But I don't think I can pretend that violence doesn't exist.
No, exactly. No, of course, no.
And so it's like, I think about this a lot because some people can't read my work because they're squeamish, and I understand that, and I actually sympathize. But on the other hand, sometimes I'm like, and I'm gonna come back to my favorite story, but I think I sympathize, but I'm also like, well, I hope that the squeamishness that you and I are feeling translates into a real world activity that is anti-actual violence, as opposed to like being super anti the aesthetic of violence. You know what I mean?
Like, almost like I'm just going to look away and pretend it doesn't exist. As
that's literally that can be exactly what that is. Yeah. And like, surprise, surprise, unfortunately, this world is super duper violent, and it's not imagination. That said, a lot of my work is pretty violent because I think we've kind of tricked ourselves into feeling it's not. And so I remember being like, however old I was, 7 or 8 or 9, when everyone was in America trampling each other for Tickle Me Elmo, for the Elmo doll. And I feel like I remember being so affected by that even back then. A human trampling another human for a toy that is presumably for like a 4-year-old. Think about the kind of mass psychosis that has to be happening for that to occur. So a lot of my work is about that. I think my favorite story from that book is the last story. It's called Through the Flash, just because it was really hard to write, and it was that talk about violence, super duper violent, but also kind of funny, and it was a really, really tricky one. I'm trying to write a story now that feels like, in conversation with that, similarly difficult, and I'm gonna try my best. But that said, the Finkelstein 5 story is also very close to me because it changed my life. I think that's the story most people who knew from the beginning think of. Now it's obviously Chain Gang, but in the beginning, people thought about Friday, Finkelstein 5, and that changed my life.
I mean, I can't really pinpoint a favorite because I think I love them all, but all of to me, it was almost like reading Black Mirror. Do you have the TV program Black Mirror?
Yeah.
It was like
over here.
It was like a more social justice Black Mirror. Like I feel like Black Mirror is very like technology, but yours was like broader than that and more social.
A lot of people compared it to Black Mirror when it came out.
Did they? Yeah. That was my but better than Black Mirror. I'm not sure about Charlie Brooker. Anyway, both books were, correct me if I'm wrong, but written before Trump was president, right? So they already, to me, reading them now, although they're dystopian, and I know not all stories in Friday Black are dystopian, but a lot of them are. They're dystopian, but they're very like near future. They feel very possible. And I think reading them like post-Trump, I appreciate Gaza isn't new, but you know, the heightening in Gaza, all of that kind of stuff, the state of the world currently, it feels even closer. Is that what it feels like to you? And if you had written those books now, do you think they would be different?
So actually for Chain Gang, actually, I started before he got elected, but I finished it during during pandemic. So it was like right in the middle of all his rise. But Friday Black was done before he was elected. And if for that book, you know, I don't think they would have changed much. And that's the thing about this, like the sort of what some people may call hyperbole, or the way I write. It's that I'm thinking about these sort of like, I am extrapolating against like these like philosophical like existing principles, or these principles, as opposed to just a thing that's in front of me. So the way I say, I'm talking a lot about the nature of the thing and not the form of the thing. And so the nature of the thing happened to be true to me before Donald Trump was elected. He is the most egregious, horrible form of it that I've seen in my personal lifetime, of course. But the nature of it was there, this callous attitude towards life, this ethnocentric, weird, pseudo, supposedly Christian, but carry your gun, anti-love, worshiping of wealthiness, idolizing fame. All these things were already real before Trump. He's just kind of this almost like cartoonish level authoritative mascot / dictator of it. And so I think it would have been similar, because he's sort of like a symptom of what's kind of been there for me.
Yeah, because it's the structures and the systems, right? And although I appreciate he's doing things, he's not creating systems and structures that have existed for a long time. He's just perpetuating them or making them worse.
He's obviously doing things so terribly, but it's like this like the runway was there for if you just had someone ridiculous enough. But it's not lost on me that he's doing harm that I don't even know if we're going to be able to really understand for a long time.
Yeah. Oh, well, and not just Trump, here too. So I'm conscious of the time, and that our members really like hearing people talk about like their writing process and their writing careers. So I'm going to switch to that if that's okay with you.
Beautiful.
So as I said, I stalked you on LinkedIn. So
I didn't even know I had a LinkedIn.
Oh, you do.
What does it say? Like, what does it say my last job was? Syracuse, probably?
It doesn't really have jobs because it has like a lot of your academic stuff. It talks about you teaching. As this is a test now and I can't remember. You were like doing a fellowship maybe and teaching as part of that?
All of B. O'Connor, but that was from 16, 17. That's so funny.
See, so it's old, but anyway, I only needed your university history, so it's fine. So tell me if I'm wrong, or your LinkedIn's wrong. So you have an undergraduate degree in English literature and language, and then you have a master's in creative writing.
Yes.
So to me, you're like, so lots of authors that we speak to have just come to writing more or less as like a hobby, and obviously they work on it. I'm not saying that they don't work on it, but you've obviously taken like an academic kind of route.
I'm a lifer, like
you're a lifer. Yeah.
So the reason I went to Syracuse was it was free for grad school, which was the price I could afford. And once I understood being a writer was like an option, and I was writing way before that, but once I truly understood it, it was an option. I've put the house on black, so to speak. Like I have not, even if I wasn't getting paid for this, I would do it. I don't for me, it's like being in alignment is being a writer or working in this kind of creativity. And yeah, it's just, so sometimes it's fun. It's interesting because for me, I don't have some of the hangups that some people have about pursuing a creative life. My mother was a teacher. My father was a lawyer, and due to medical or psychological hardships, we still had a lot of struggle, even with those very safe route, quote unquote, safe route kind of position jobs. We still had to, you know, for house foreclosures, still evictions, and it kind of freed me from basically, or you could in some way gave me maybe a really deep trauma of an scarcity mindset. But the other side, it gave me a sense that like you might as well go for exactly what you want to do, because you can do the safe thing and still not be safe. So yeah, I went to school and I pursued it, and I went to grad school and I pursued it further, and I got fellowships where I pursued it, and I got another fellowship this year coming up where I'm doing it. This is basically what I do.
I wasn't surprised after reading your books when I learned that you were like what I'm going to call an academic writer rather than a hobby writer, because I was like, well, of course, you can kind of tell, like, it's obviously your craft, like, you know, you've worked on it and developed it, and you can tell that from reading it.
Yeah, and it's funny, and you know, it's interesting, like, because academic writer has so many implications, but I have been like both formally trained and informally trained. Like I came to it on my own, and I did sort of like have 3 years, which is an incredible amount of time to like focus on it. And that is really special. I am a little, there is a certain kind of literary style that I think I'm a little bit outside of, but I can identify it for sure. And I know what that is. And some of it is in me too. So yeah, I've definitely like focused on it in a certain kind of way.
So I did psychology at uni, not English, so it's not my
I am interested.
But the vibe of like doing creative writing always seems to me like not to necessarily learn how to like do literature, but how to do literature as you, if that makes sense, how to write as you.
Yeah, to me, when I teach, I say I'm trying to get you to be able to represent your essence in language. That's really what we're trying to do.
Yeah, amazing. I think you'd be an incredible teacher, I can tell. But I am going to ask you about advice for people who want to be writers. But before that, I heard Chris Whitaker speak recently. You know, he wrote All the Colours of the Dark. Obviously, it's not in the same kind of writing that you do, but his writing process was something like he has the manuscript. He has 3 screens. He has the manuscript in the middle. He has where his character is, pictures of it on the other screen, and then he has what they can see, hear, whatever on the other screen. Which made me, I hadn't really thought about how to write. Most writers I've heard say like,
that's so interesting, that's so cool.
Yeah, and I was like, that's cool. So it kind of stuck with me. So I wondered, like, what's your process? How do you write? What do you do?
I don't have anything that cool. I am
sorry, I wasn't trying to put you under pressure.
Whatever I do, it's like kicking it. Like I'm by any means, like if I have to write by hand, I'll sit by the notebook by hand. Most of the time I'm maybe exactly where I am right now. Just I'll put some kind of blocker on my internet. Maybe I'll have some lo-fi sound in the back.
Nice.
Probably not though. And I just try to like be entertained by the sentence I'm on, you know, one sentence at a time. What sounds good to me, like right now, this sentence particularly, and I go from there. That's it. It's not super crazy fun.
No, it sounds chill though. It sounds like natural.
Yeah, you're right. But also, I struggle a lot too. So sometimes I'll try to go to a coffee shop. A lot of times I'll try to, since something has changed though, since I've been working on screenplay a little bit, we're trying to adapt Chain Gang, but also before that, we tried to adapt some stories for Friday Black for a Black Mirror type show. I think more in like scenes, if that makes sense. Like Chain Gang is very scene. There's a lot of scenes in it. Which similar to what the character, you said it was Chris Whitaker. Is that what you said that was? Yeah. He's thinking about the character in physical space, which is, but obviously a lot of writing doesn't have to occur in a physical space. It can be a lot of this interiority, but because of the nature of, obviously you do both, but Chain Gang was a very like scene heavy book.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's, I don't know, I'm interested in that because I don't want to be too much like that, but I've been playing around. If you think about like a Cormac McCarthy type writer, I remember my professor Mary Carr said, like, it's almost all physical scenes, almost everything.
Mm.
And that's just the style. But the reason I mention it now is that sometimes when I'm writing, I'm like trying to lock into imagining a particular scene, and that execution of that scene is like my guiding light sometimes. If there's like a tread momentum, it can be that, but not always.
And do you have all the scenes like planned out from when you?
No.
So do you write in like a chronological order, and not chronological, but like in the order of the book, and see where it takes you?
Mostly I do. I do think that the next like bigger novel project I'm working on a short story collection right now. I think the next novel project, I'm gonna try to write and hope, you know. I don't know if it can be chronological order or not, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I like it. I am going to ask you later if you can tell us what you're working on, but I'll stop on that one for now. So I found both books quite like heavy to read, although there was a lot of love and I could see like the hope and the compassion, but still heavy. But I read that you find writing hopeful, and that kind of surprised me. Why, I guess, is my question.
And this is maybe also addressing if Phoebe McDonald's still there, a question about the prison industrial complex. And if you look at any issue at any history in time, any horrific thing that's happened, there's someone who was fighting against it, like till the very end.
Mm.
I am in a house right now. I've read the book Solitary by Albert Woodfox, which is another something you might be interested in researching if you want to think about that space. Solitary by Albert Woodfox. Man spent 42 years in solitary confinement. Was a panther from inside the prison, never stopped. So to me, like hopelessness is hopelessness is another version of the like, oh, I can't look over there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, who am I on my internet with television? I could turn on the air conditioner and be like, oh, it's hopeless. There's people getting bombed right now by your tax dollars. You know what I'm saying? So like, I get inspired and I feel hopeful because they were hopeful in much more dire circumstances, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, like by being in community with the world, again, maybe this is too romantic for me. If I hear of one person who wasn't like an abolitionist become abolitionist, that gives me hope in that regard, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can happen again. I've had no lies happen to me probably hundreds of times now. So why should I be hopeless? Because like, first off, authoritarian regimes depend on us being hopeless. They depend on us not imagining that, oh, they just want to depend on us being like, oh, we can't do it. I have experienced for a fact, for those who maybe don't get the privileged experience that I have never thought about this before, and now I believe in it deeply. It happens to me all the time. I get it directly because of what I wrote. But there's in your own personal experience, my thing is like, don't even make it about anybody else. What if it's just about you? Can you remember a time where you were less than compassionate and you became more compassionate? Then there's hope. Like that's really it. Like if you look too big, it's of course gonna be like, oh no, you're not gonna change the geopolitics by yourself of these violent nation states. But what about your community? You know, what about your next door neighbor? Did you ever check up on them? Like, did they ever check up on you? Like that can be what hope looks like. And so for me, like I know that the world is bleak, but like there's no way I can see the community that's existing. There's no way I can know of like a Frederick Douglass who didn't lose hope. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's people like I imagine him looking at me choosing to be hopeless and just being like, are you serious? Like I'm like, oh no, I don't like it. My iPhone is, mind you, it's a very bad thing that my iPhone is being like, I don't know, surveilled all the time. I don't even have an iPhone, my Android, whatever. But like,
yeah,
there's people in literal current slavery who aren't hopeless right now. right now today. So like out of respect, I can't be hopeless. Then, like I said, there's people, as long as even one person is trying, I don't think it's hopeless. But again, I'm the kind of person, when I play basketball, if I'm down by 40 points, I don't care. Until the game is done.
Still win. We're doing it. We're playing.
Yeah. That's how I play. Because you don't know, like, anything can happen. So that's how I keep faith.
All to play for. Yeah. Thank you. I'm gonna go to the Q&A if that's okay, because otherwise I'm gonna have some very cross members, because I'll have asked all my own questions and none of anybody else's.
I tried to answer one just now. That was
you did. You're doing great. I'm gonna do the Discord first, which is on my phone, which you can't see. Okay. So the first question is from Francis, and she said, "Is there scope to grow the world of Chain Gang All Stars?"
Yes and no. So we're working on a TV show now, so I think that maybe not necessarily getting it bigger, but we'll get a chance to look closely at some characters we hadn't got to like spend a lot of time with before, or see them in a new sort of rendering. So maybe that's bigger. At the very least, another angle.
And it'll be quite meta because of the lifelink stuff, where it's almost like Big Brother, isn't it? They're being watched while they're in camp and stuff. Yep. And you'll be watching them watching people watching.
A lot of the shows about the show and book are about the act of watching.
Yeah, we didn't get to talk really about is it Emily and Will, isn't it? But I found their perspective really uncomfortable, which I imagine is the point.
Someone asked about them, and I was gonna say about her. For me, I wanted someone I wanted like the mundanity of. She's kind of like the mundanity of evil kind of person. I'm not saying I was explicitly thinking those terms, but this is for Lauren Rich, like someone who's just casually participating in something horrific, and how usually that's what it looks like. It's not someone waking up and say, "I want to be an evil man today." It's like, I kind of think this, and next thing you know, you wake up and you're J.K. Rowling. I'm just kidding.
I mean, it's possible. The next question is from Layla, although actually she's got multiple questions. What was the inspiration behind the influencer?
Good question. I think I don't know why I chose that name, even though the name is so auspicious in today's society, but I literally was like, I need torture, like explicit, extreme torture, which America does. But even though it's not supposed to, explicitly says it shouldn't. I put that obnoxiously long footnote of the entire part of the Constitution. But yeah, I think I just wanted pure violence, and I wanted it to give it like the name that feels so different. Influencer. It could be anything.
Yeah. It gave me like what's the electricity?
The taser.
A taser. It gave me like much stronger taser vibes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. And a taser also I think I said it. Tasers can kill people also, just as a fun fact. And someone from where I'm from was actually killed by taser. This is not like a theoretical idea.
No.
Her name is Tina Davis.
Layla has 2 more questions. What made you decide to write from various characters' point of view rather than just follow Thurwolf throughout?
It's a lot of different things. One, I think that just logistically, like Thurwolf can't interact with all aspects of this thing, and I want to get a sort of panorama view. But also, I get bored. I'll get bored. I will. Yeah. I think part of my strength is that, or at least I hope, is like a diversity of like style and voices. And I think part of my style is how varied my style can be. And I used to be like sort of ashamed or afraid about that. Now I've leaned into it really hard. And so I think I just would get bored.
I can empathize. And her last question, I did kind of want to ask myself, but I was afraid that I personally would stray into spoilers. So if you could try and answer, but with no spoilers, what made you decide to end the book how you did, where you did? And
I'm not going to answer it well because I can't, but I just had no choice. Like there's still less and less as you go further and further, it feels like you have less choices and more, representation of what you're getting in the down mode or the, I wish I could have done it different. I'll say it like that, but I just couldn't. It would have felt like dishonest.
Yeah, to me, anything else would have felt more obvious. Like, it wasn't obvious.
Yeah,
I mean, it was an option, but it wasn't the most obvious option
I
in my
tried my
reading of
best
it.
to do that, and in a lot of ways, it was me listening to my characters. I'll say that too. They are the
Yeah.
ones who I'm listening to, and they're like, okay, yeah. I can't say anything else.
No, sorry, it's a hard question without spoilers. So I'm in the Q&A now. So Katrina asks, what made you get into writing?
I think like many people, I just initially was escapism. I mentioned before, like my mom has some pretty serious mental health issues. I think I was kind of running away from that and like money stuff. And I like making something that no one could take away, you know, even like as a young kid, the video games or whatever, they could like turn the TV off. But my stories were kind of mine. And I think I like that a lot.
I did wonder if the name has escaped me, but there's a story in Friday Black where a young man is like marked by the devil.
Yeah. Yes.
He has like a compulsion to
Oh,
write.
God. Yeah.
And I did wonder if that was maybe vaguely based on you.
Vaguely, no. I think directly. Like that's to me, that story is the most, even more as much as things my mother said, which is just a thing that happened. The hospital where is the story you're talking about is the most autobiographical thing I've ever written, I think.
Yeah, I could feel that. Alexandra said, what kind of books do you enjoy reading yourself?
I saw that question. That's a great question. There's so many to name. I'm trying to like
you're looking for books.
There's so many books all around me. I just got this. This is my friend Clavis just came out with a book. There's a book called Widbey, WHIDBEY by Takira Madden. It's not out yet. I know that's annoying when people do that, but watch.
You're allowed.
Remember, I told y'all this. This book is gonna take everything. It's so insanely good. WHIDBEY, Widbey. This book is about the book that I just here is about it's about a resort in DR, and I like this. I think the cultural, financial implications of these resort spaces. Widbey's about a woman and her trauma after being sort of assaulted as a child. That's to say, I like I like everything. If the writing is good, I could love it. I'm reading Dungeon Crawler Carl, which is a very like sci-fi. They call it a lit RPG. It's like a video game kind of thing. And I haven't read anything like that in a long time. It's like kind of like, it feels, it's not YA because the themes are it's very violent, but in like a comic book way. But I've been really enjoying it. So I read from a huge net. George Saunders is one of my favorite writers ever. Obviously Toni Morrison, just like everybody else I love. I read it from a wide sort of pool of things.
And does reading, my own question, sorry, does reading feel like work or not?
Well, when I'm really in it, no.
No.
When I love it, no.
The book's terrible. Yeah.
It's getting rarer. You know,
it's getting rarer to love it.
It's getting rarer that I could turn that part of my brain off. You know, it's like even if I love it, it's like I feel myself inserting like comparison and whatever, and I have to like make an effort to just enjoy. And not, I mean, it's okay. It's not a bad thing to learn, but I can get distracted. But the thing I love about Widbey is just sitting me down and I'm just experiencing it. And it's really, it hurts. It's beautiful. It's special.
Yeah. Noted. And when I read it, I'll be like, this is the one Nana told us about.
It's going to be pretty harsh. So like, you know, read the trigger warning. There's a trigger warning in the beginning.
Okay. Good tip. So Heather asks, what is your favorite and least favorite part of the writing process?
Good question. The hard part about, I think, being a writer is you're kind of always in a state of like mild to super intense dissatisfaction, like at all times, every single day. And like even today, it's like a little buzz in my ear, like, you haven't really written today. Are you a failure? You know? And if like later on, I'll be like,
I mean, the answer is no. If you need somebody to tell you, I'll tell you now.
Yeah, you know, thank you. And that isn't great. The feeling that you made something out of nothing. So to me, the awards and all these things, which are great, and don't get me wrong, if there's someone here with award power, I want the award. But those are not like the thing for me. I think the thing that feels special is after you just finished writing, like that hour, an hour and a half after you just did something, you kind of like it. It feels like it's a really powerful drug. It's not even a drug. It just feels like I just made something, and that's a cool, good feeling.
Yeah, I can imagine. Thank you. I think the next one you've kind of answered, but if you want to say something else about it, then feel free. So Anonymous asks, what did you study at university, and do you think your studies influenced your writing?
100%. I was an English major. I read sometimes it's just getting guided reading. I was an English major, and I was like but I was a film studies minor. I was a communications minor, and I was a journalism minor. Clearly, I needed a lot of minors.
Yeah.
I had a lot of
options open.
I was trying to stay in school longer because I didn't want to go back. Anyways, whatever. Absolutely. But being a writer is cool because I could learn from anybody. I could be around anybody. And I took a lot of psych classes as well and philosophy classes. I almost marked in those. I think I learned that a lot of my majors and minors were about the act of communication in one way or another. Yeah. And then, which is to me another word for connection and through different mediums. And I think that's all I do. And I make music a little bit. I take pictures a little bit. To me, all art is just expression, which is another way of connection. And so absolutely, it all helped me.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm pro school. I'm one of the people who's like pro education, even though I'm very anti like academia in some ways. Yeah. I love
establishment, pro education.
Yeah. And the establishment has made it a transactional sort of mishmash and sort of exploitative shadow of what it could be.
Yeah. And again, that's the UK too, not just a US thing. BB has multiple questions. Okay, so what research did you do to prepare to write Chain Gang All Stars? Do you do most of your research before you start writing or during?
I read a ton of books. Some of them were more academic. Some of them were like so like Ruth Wilson Gilmore writes like Ruth Wilson Gilmore's academic. She's a geologist and a famous abolitionist. I read stuff like Albert Woodfox's personal accounts of people who were incarcerated. His book is called Solitary. I mentioned it previously. I did a lot of peer-reviewed journals too. I'm big on like, JSTOR. So if I had an issue or question, I'd be like peer-reviewed article, then I'd say food in prisons, and I'd find out some peer-reviewed studies about art, because every time I make a claim I wanted to be able to back it up with actual facts, especially for the footnotes. So when I say so-called rubber bullets that's a kind of a misnomer, because rubber is a minor component in them. That's a fact that I researched, as opposed to like me just saying things. So it happened all the way through, but I had to there's probably like about a year after I wrote the first like 30 or 40 pages where I was like just doing a general research, just imbuing myself with like an actual belief. And then I sort of did it as needed when it came up. Yeah.
That makes sense. And then Phoebe's follow-up question was, do you have any recommendations for someone interested in reading more about the US prison industrial complex?
100%. Solitary, Albert Woodfox. What's the Mars Room? Is that Rachel Kushner?
Yes, it's the Mars Room. Yep.
The Mars Room. If you just search Ruth Wilson Gilmore, you'll get really great stuff. Ruth Wilson Gilmore. She's a geologist. And then of course you could always do Prisons Are Obsolete by the great Angela Davis. There's another one. We Do This Till We Free Us. I'm looking at it. Miriam Kaba. We do this till we free us.
I'm going to write it down, although I did think, actually, what I'll need to do is watch the replay and then I can write them all down, and that'll be...
Last name Kaba. Kaba.
Super. Thank you. There's a question about Emily, which I'm going to save for a second and just go. Alexandra has another question, which we've touched on, but again, if you want to say something else about it, why do you think you're able to capture female characters so well?
I think, on some level, like, I respect women as human beings, just like I respect other people as them. So, like, I happen to have two sisters. I'm the middle boy, and there's no other. I don't have any brothers, but I never grew up with any brothers, but I have two sisters. I read a lot of women, but also like to me, again, women are humans, you know, women are people, and you just gotta try to be honest and respect. And I just, for me, whoever I'm talking about, I'm like, okay, what would a reasonable person in this, from this context, do? That's basically what I'm asking myself.
Yeah.
And that ends up being it. Of course, you get to know them after a while, but and they still surprise you. But for the most part, I think of them from the inside. And then maybe it is like in terms of practical help or something, not to be too. I think of all my characters from like the inside out, as opposed to like the
Mhm.
outside in, you know. So I'm
Mhm.
not like, I know what Third War and Stacks look like, but that's not the main thing
Yeah.
at all. But that's also true of the men. But
Yeah.
maybe people feel maybe there's a tendency of men to think about women characters from the outside in,
Mhm.
can be you know,
I,
dumb.
I was just about to say, you make it sound really easy. Like, oh, I just think about them like they're people, and then I write like that. Like it's really like everyone does that. Well, everyone doesn't do that. So
It's crazy though, because it's not like like what you're writing, it's like do the same thing you did with that man character. Do the same thing, you know?
maybe other people just aren't as talented as you. Um, the question about Emily from Lauren was, I found the inclusion of Emily's character interesting. So this is obviously in Chain Gang All Stars. How did you approach her character arc as someone interested in the sideshow initially and then becoming more interested in the violence as the story progressed?
I similar to like I was saying, like I think there's a lot of people who are like casually like with like someone who voted for Donald Trump or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's annoying, but whatever. And then you can slowly get enrolled in it. Again, I think she's thinks of herself as a good, kind person, but the fervor of others, the wanting to be included, these are all really powerful forces. And yeah, people, you'd be surprised who can sort of enroll themselves in a terrible violence. So like for example, for me, someone voting for Donald Trump, like that's a cosign of a terrible violence.
Mm-hmm.
For them, it's like,
I
you know, I
just,
wanna be able to I don't know, have lower taxes or whatever.
yeah, I
Something
want to take my country back. I can't really explain to you what that means, but that's what I want. That kind of
exactly. Yes, but I mean, y'all with the Brexit thing, like that whole thing, and
stuff.
that, like, you know, the vibe of that is very. I mean, it's hard to even with that language. It's funny because that one is both of our situations are so inherently violent, but yeah, it's I wanted like a honest and even like sympathetic representation. I didn't want to like there's a version of it where I'm like only condescending to her, and I do want to like note the ridiculousness of it, but also like with a sincerity.
Mm, yeah. She, I mean, she does get upset and stuff as well. Like, it's not like she watches it and
Exactly.
um thinks that it's normal or good always, but equally she doesn't do anything about it.
And she participates and she doesn't like condemn it. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Alexandra is on a roll, so I've got two more questions, and then I'm going to stop with the member questions. So first of all, is it true that you almost became a lawyer or considered it? If so, what made you change your mind?
I think I almost considered it in the sense of like when you're in school, a lot of people are like, you need a job. And if you get an English degree, they're gonna be like, well, you can be a lawyer. And my dad was a lawyer. But considered is a strong word. I think I thought about it, which is I think I thought in the sense of like maybe I'll become a lawyer one day if I can't do the writing thing. But I again I was pretty all in on the writer thing by the time it was worth really thinking about anything else.
Makes sense. And then her last question is, if you could put a music soundtrack to Chain Gang, what would it be?
These are really hard for me. I don't write to music, but there's a song by the rapper. His name is Kyle. Very boring rapper name, Kyle. He has a song called "Don't Want to Fall in Love." It's a sample of I'm forgetting the sample. He uses a very famous sample which you'll probably know. That song was a song I was imagining as Stax's intro music. So at least something. But I don't know if that's one song. I gotta think of everybody else's. Third Wars would be like before she decided to do no music, it would have been like something similar to Melancholy or something big and like bells but like with a little bit more. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe like a big not orchestral but like almost orchestral inspired.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you. Good question, Alexandra. Okay, I have a final few questions just to wrap us up. So lots of our members are writers. I don't really like aspiring writers because if you write, you're right.
I'm an aspiring writer as well.
What advice would you give to other people who want to write, are struggling to write?
What you just said is an important advice. I think like you write a word, then a word, then a word. That's a sentence, and then you write a couple of sentences. That's a paragraph. Write a couple of paragraphs. That's a chapter. A couple of chapters. That's a book. Like if you can make it deep, sometimes we can sort of like build up these writer characters to be more than they are. It's just people trying their best, sitting in a room, sad, just sitting in front of a computer, depressed, just like you. No, do whoever, like, just like it can be really scary. I think read deeply, read widely, favor generosity towards yourself and others. When you're in the world, like be present, be really, really present. And your writing will grow stronger. But if you can, while you're writing a word, then a word, then a word, then a word, that's sentence. Just that sentence. Like try your best to like put as much effort and energy into the sentence in front of you. Don't worry about what's in front of you. Don't worry too much about what's behind you until you get to editing phase. In the act of writing, the initial drafting period. Also, writing has many different phases, and sometimes we talk about them all as if they're one thing. And I think they require different mindsets and different dispositions, and they all have different energies. But focus on that one sentence. Embrace the idea of revision. George Saunders says there's two things that are, I'm giving a lot of advice, two things that are, he's taught for many, many years that sort of predispose of someone who's going to be successful as a writer. He said one is a willingness to revise a lot, and the two, understanding of, what's the word he uses? Of, like, I just forget the second thing. It's, thing C happens because of thing B happens because of thing A, like understanding how to, let me just find the exact language because it's going to upset me. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Don't apologize.
It's a good one. It's like understanding like that these things are connected and making sure that you emphasize that. Okay, here we go. Okay, causality is the word he uses. Understanding causality. Here's his quote. There's no shortage of people who can write compelling prose, write an interesting description of a room or a yard. Many people can do this and shine at it. The thing I've called causality is really just the magic element which makes prose cohere into something propulsive that feels like it's going somewhere, that is somehow a step beyond mere description. It's like water versus boiling water, a parked car versus one speeding past, like someone talking for the sake of talking versus someone who has something urgent to say. And then the example he would give is, imagine the difference of these two sentences or these two examples. The king died and the queen. The king died, period. The queen died, versus the king died and the queen died of grief.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying? Totally different. So he put that out a little bit ago. I'm going to write something about this because I think that's huge. If you can grow your sense of, and if you could identify causality and other things, to me, a lot of times it will feel like when a story falls flat for you or a movie or a book, does it feel like, okay, it feels like sometimes the causality wasn't clear to you. And so I think you want to have a sense that, oh, wow, that thing that happened way here mattered way over here. And so, And I actually, and not to go further about it, I think that writers outside of the so-called literary genre have a better sense about this, because I think literary people are like, so I don't like plot.
Yes.
And it can make them, anyways, whatever. That's a whole other conversation.
We could talk all night, but yeah, yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you so much. One last question. If you're allowed to tell us what you're currently working on, and like what can we expect from you next?
I'm working on an adaptation for Chain Gang All Stars into a TV show, so cross our fingers. We'll see if that actually can happen. I actually think it can. And then we're doing
amazing.
I'm working on a short story collection too, and then maybe something else.
Okay, super. Well, thank you so much for coming to speak to us, Nana. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I appreciate y'all very much, Francesca. Thank you for the incredible questions. You didn't seem nervous at all. You were amazing. Super. That's what I aim to do. Thank you so much. I see all the claps. I see the hearts and the sound thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call that. The kazoo, whatever. Thank y'all. I'm very grateful.
Thank you. Thanks, Nana. I assume it's the morning or like daytime for you. So have a good rest of your day.
Yep.
Thanks. Bye.